How would you like some good news for a change? Like the Washington press corps doing an honest job last week and going after President Obama and White House spokesmodel Jay Carney, huh? What? No, that can happen. Really, it did, I swear. I'm Steve Green. This is Trifecta, and joining me, Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. Gentlemen, I think we need to set the stage here. So we've got President Obama last week telling reporters how to do their jobs, and well, not the way we would want them to.
This bears on your reporting. I think that there is oftentimes the impulse to suggest that if the two parties are disagreeing, then they're equally at fault and the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, Bill, if I were a journalist sitting there getting a lecture like that, I think I'd get angry enough to go for a little payback. How about you?
Oh, silly, silly boy. That's because you have integrity and character.
No.
There's nothing to worry about. The press corps will be fine. You know, I don't know if it was Scott who said, I think it was Scotty on a Trifecta episode, said these aren't reporters anymore. This is the White House stenography pool. I refer to the mainstream media as the audiovisual department for the Democratic Party. That's what they are. And we need to call them that. We need to call them that at every single opportunity. They're lapdogs, they're lackeys, they're lick spittles, they're sycophants. There's not an honest journalist in the country, apparently. There's not one, apparently, who will actually do their job as long as it conflicts with the ideology that they've had drummed into them in journalism school. And so we need to openly mock them for what they are. They're lapdogs, they're lick spittles, they're sycophants, they're followers, they're poodles.
Maybe not 100% of the time. Wait till this next clip. Scott, that lecture came on the heels of Obama's, just plain wrong statements about the Supreme Court last Monday. And I believe that those two things together led to Norah O'Donnell, yes, Norah O'Donnell, tearing into Jay Carney last week. Watch this.
Come on.
Does he regret using the word unprecedented?
Not at all, because as I've said a couple of times now, the president was referring to making the unremarkable observation about 80 years of Supreme Court history. Since the Lochner era, well, only because a handful of people didn't seem to understand what he was referring to.
I'm one of the handful.
Big liar.
I'm one of the handful. Yeah, the three of us.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
Yeah, handful. Yeah, it was everybody. So, Scott, do you have a better explanation for what was going on than my thought?
Well, I think there are a couple of things going on here. First of all, I think the president was actually right when he was saying that journalists tend to look at one side's argument and the other side's argument and figure that the truth must be somewhere in the middle, but that's not always the case. However, the president doesn't really take it to its logical conclusion, because what he's really saying is the truth is on my side, not their side. And so he's not saying I want you to actually look at the facts and analyze the issues. He's saying I want you to side with me. So then he gets up there and makes that unremarkable observation that it would be unprecedented for the Supreme Court to overturn a law passed by Congress, even though it's been done 165 times since 1803. And I think the media is embarrassed. I think they have been the sycophants that Bill suggests, and they found themselves looking like idiots because they're supporting this guy who said something idiotic, even though he's supposedly a constitutional lecturer.
Now, that is a radical suggestion that the Washington press corps has developed a sense of shame. I think maybe we'll get back to that in a second. Bill, it gets even better as Ed Henry from Fox News jumped into the fray.
But in his original comments, he did not draw out that caveat. He just said the whole thing would be unprecedented.
That's not what he said, Ed. That's not certainly what he meant. And it was clear to most folks who observe this and understand what is at issue here.
Jay, that's not true.
Bill, did you hear that at the end where Norah O'Donnell, that was Norah O'Donnell jumping in to defend a guy from Fox News. Dogs and cats living together, human sacrifice. Is this a sign of the apocalypse?
I just love watching the press secretary, because it just goes to show you how infrequently they get an actual question. And good for you, lady, and good for you, sir. Because when you actually ask tough questions, you could ask these kind of questions, 15, 20 of them every single day with this administration. The press secretary turns kind of into this... I know that. I know that. Why wouldn't you think I know that? I know that. I know that.
Martin Short.
And that's and that suit you're wearing. I mean, that suit is just, it's horrible. Why would you wear a suit like that? I know that. I know that. Why wouldn't you think I know that? Of course I know that. Look, This is what happens when you ask tough questions. If there was a press corps, this would not be the President of the United States. And if there was a press corps between now and November, even 100th, if 1% of the press corps did their job, Barack Obama would never be reelected. You can tell when he lectures people, when he gets called on these things. When Barack Obama made that comment, he was off prompter. You could tell because he was going, that's how the man actually speaks when he's not got a prompter going. And we're working without prompters right now, just so you know. But this is what happens when he goes off prompter.
Yeah,
he speaks his mind. And when he speaks his mind, he gets in a lot of trouble. And I just want to very, very quickly want to say one thing. This business about the truth being in the middle, isn't Barack Obama's modus operandi to say, some people say that puppies should be crushed with a steamroller. Other people say that puppies should be put on a golden platter and fed nothing but champagne. But I think that puppies should be treated as members of the family with love and affection. Isn't that his entire purpose in life, is to pick two wild extremes and put his radical position right in the middle so he looks like a reasonable man? This guy has more nerve than anybody in the history of the world.
You know, Bill, I don't think you went far enough. If we had an honest press corps, Obama would lose all 57 states next fall. Scott, I want you to witness the impossible as Norah O'Donnell continued to press the attack.
The president said on Monday that it would be an unprecedented, extraordinary step of overturning a law that was passed by a strong majority of a Democratic elected Congress. It took him yesterday to talk about the Commerce Clause and on an economic issue.
Nora,
there are two instances in the past 80 years where the Supreme Court has overturned stuff. U.S. versus Lopez and U.S. versus
Nora,
Morrison.
what I'm telling you,
these are very specific legal issues. It's not evident to everybody.
And Scott, believe it or not, buddy, there's a lot more of this stuff from several reporters over the course of 2 or 3 press briefings last week. It was great to see. So, buddy, am I letting my hopes run too high here?
Well, I think as long as he continues to embarrass them and make them look silly and then turn around and say things like it was an unremarkable observation. Oh, my goodness. This started a firestorm of controversy on the right, on the left, in the middle, among constitutional scholars, everywhere. And then the press secretary has the temerity to stand up and say, well, it was an unremarkable observation. And of course, you know, he was saying things assuming everybody would remember the Lochner case from the early 1900s and would, of course, connect this with the Commerce Clause, as if that was the common level of understanding of people who would, even in the media, who would be listening to this. It is deception, it is irrelevance, and this president is becoming increasingly irrelevant.
You know what? Unremarkable means people aren't remarking on it. Choose your words carefully, Jay Carney. All right, folks, reporters like to think that it's their job to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. What they need to remember, though, is 2 things. 1, there is nobody more comfortable than a sitting president. No pun intended. But the second part is the important one, and that is, under this administration, it's the White House press corps that is the afflicted. They are abused by this administration. Now, if they just stop acting like willing victims. For PJTV, I'm Steve Green.